Before I open the meeting, I'd like to invite Colonel Panu and Nimi Johal to say a prayer for us representing the Sikh community in the Royal Borough.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, councillors and officers, greetings. My name is Colonel Panu and this is my daughter Nimi Johal. I'm the chair of the Interfaith Network set up 43 years ago. It has been serving the borough. We have 9 faith members along with non-faiths joining us too. Our vision, strengthening friendship and trust among the different faiths within the Royal Borough and within the wider community. During this time each year, our incumbent mayor becomes its annual president, and our forging relations with the past mayors and councillors and MPs as well as the neighboring councils continue. In 2021, Councillor Helen Price approached us if we could accommodate interfaith prayers from various denominations for full council meetings. We naturally welcomed this. 4 faiths have already done it.
Today we are representing our Sikh faith that believes there is only one God. Guru Nanak founded the Sikh faith in 1469. Before we begin, we should always remember that everybody feels welcome, independent of their religious or non-religious beliefs. Guru Nanak established 3 pillars of humanity. Kirat karo, earn honestly, band chako, share with others, Naam japo, meditate and remember God.
It's with great honor that we both were able to share Sikh prayers to open the first full council meeting of the newly elected members. With our prayer, we wish you strength, be able to fulfill your duty to our residents and to the borough. May you work hard to achieve these goals. We end our prayer with these words from Guru Nanak. So I will read in Punjabi and she will translate in English. Ik Onkar.
There is only one God.
Satnam.
He is the supreme truth.
Karta Purakh.
He is the creator.
Nirbhav.
He has no fear.
Nirvair.
He is without hate.
Akal Murat.
He is only present.
Ajuni Sabang.
Unborn, self-illuminating.
Gur Prasad.
By Guru's grace, he is
Jap.
realized.
Jap.
Meditate on his name.
Ad Sach.
He has been true since time began.
Jugad Sach.
He has been true since ages.
Happy Sach.
He is still true.
Nanak Hosi Pi Sach.
Nanak says, will be true.
We conclude with the following words from Guru Nanak.
Nanak Naam Chardi Kala Tere Pane Sarvata Pala.
O God, give us light, give us understanding so that we may know what pleased thee, and may all the whole mankind prosper by thy grace.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I declare the meeting open. Please be seated. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid council meeting. My name is Neil Knowles. I'm the Mayor of the Royal Borough of Windsor Maidenhead, and I will be chairing this meeting. Please note that I'm waiving the requirement within the council procedure rules which require members to stand when addressing the meeting. Please remain seated as the PA can pick up your voice more clearly. The meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. I would like to remind all attendees, whether here in the room or in the Zoom meeting, that participation indicates consent to the audio and video being streamed live, and acknowledgement that after the meeting, it will continue to be available in the public domain. Please respect that during the meeting, I may need to take time out to discuss procedures with officers on either side of me. We will now move to item 1 on the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, 3 apologies received, 1 from Councillor Blundell, 1 from Councillor Howard and 1 from Councillor Walters.
Are there any other apologies that have not been noted? We now come to agenda item number 2, which is minutes of the previous meeting. Unusually, due to the cancellation of our meeting in April, and the fact that our annual and extraordinary meetings do not consider previous minutes, we have 3 sets to agree. I've asked colleagues to bring typos to the attention of Democratic Services so we can focus on the content of any minute which may need to be discussed. Does anybody have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? And is everybody happy to approve all 3 sets of minutes together? Anybody against that? If we can indicate if you're against doing that. Okay. Can I have somebody to second that, please?
We've got Councillor Beaumont with his hand raised. Mr. Mayor.
Can this be agreed unanimously? Okay. Any abstentions? Thank you. That is carried. Next agenda item is declarations of interest. Full advice for making declarations of interest is set out in the agenda item 3. If any councillor has an interest to declare, please indicate by raising your hand and I will come to you in turn. Okay, no other declarations of interest. We now come to agenda item 4, which are the Mayor's communications. By carrying on with the rather dry piece of work, which you'll find in the meeting pack, we thought we'd follow this up with the small show of what I've been up to, just to highlight some of the places I've visited and some of the organisations that I've been in contact with during this time. We'll just wait for those to appear. There we go. Feeling Good, which is just down the road, literally. It's a plastic-free place where you can go and fill up with cereals, pasta, nuts, etc. And of course, it's plastic-free July. So that's why I went to visit there. Next, please. And unusually, myself and the Town Crier got to pour the first pint at the Maidenhead Beer Festival. I'm told that these are all the terrible jobs that may be not happening next year, Simon, so I do, I'm only joking, of course. Next slide, please. With the Lions International, the Maidenhead branch, actually celebrating 50 years in existence with the tree planted in Kidswell Park, with our Member of Parliament from Maidenhead. Next, please. This is with the Green Room down in Dedworth at the Swan in Clewer Village. The Green Room is a special educational needs unit, very small, very bespoke, and it's a school in a pub. All I'll say is, if you don't know what I'm talking about or would like to experience it, they welcome visitors. It's something quite remarkable, and what they achieve for students at the far end of the educational scale. Next, please. I was honoured to come along and say a few words at the start of the conference about community land trusts down at the Northern Centre. And I was particularly happy to help support this, as was Councillor Bond and other councillors here, because quite a few of the companies involved and organisations involved with development in the Royal Borough came down to have a look at it, and most of them stayed the whole day. We found it a very fascinating alternate to the development plans, which I think most people are used to. Next, please. I got to visit the Windsor Maidenhead Symphony Orchestra at Oatney Hall in Cookham. That is a superb orchestra. If you get a chance to see them, please do. They are absolutely fabulous. And I got to go to the Rock the Wreck in Dedworth, organised by some of the people in this room here, which is a grand day out again. And I didn't get too much sun, which is quite important. Next, please. Kind of the back end of the Armed Forces Day event with the Rotary Club, highlighting the local reserve units. Next, please. Oh, we're all gone. There we go. I did have another slide, which we didn't put up in time, which was me asking to help with the stock check down at the museum, and they put me in the stocks instead. So you can see that on the very new Twitter page we've launched for the mayoralty, which will carry on after my time. It will be something to highlight what the mayoralty actually does over the next few months. Agenda item 5, which are public questions. We have 4 public questions this evening. Members of the public who submitted questions in advance of the meeting were notified yesterday that written answers to each question had been published to the council website and will be displayed on the screen here where feasible. They have therefore been given the opportunity to consider the response they were given and prepare a supplementary question to ask if they so desired. We have a total of 30 minutes available for these supplementary questions, and any supplementary questions not dealt with during the meeting will be dealt with by way of a further written answer. I will now invite each public questioner to ask their supplementary question in turn. First public question is Thomas Wigley from Clewer East. Ask that question there, and coming up shortly, we should have the answer. Is Thomas Wigley present here today or online? Thomas Wigley is present online. Do we have the response? Okay, is it there? Okay.
We can share the response, Mr. Mayor, but he's not currently with us virtually online.
Okay. Right. Are they up, sir? Not working. So up there now, you can see Thomas Wigley's written response to that question, and there is no supplementary question. If we move on now to the next question, which is Tina Quadrino of Pinkneys Green, asking the following question of Councillor Werner, leader of the council and lead member for community partnerships, public protection and Maidenhead. The question is up on the screen and the answer should appear soon. And Tina, if you could just wait a second till we have the written response up onto the screen. To save time, we'll just move straight on, okay?
Thank you for responding to my question, Councillor Werner. The previous administration did indeed miss many opportunities, not just in relation to housing numbers, but also in relation to meeting environment and climate targets as set out in RBWM's Environment and Climate Strategy. We have an opportunity to save 132 acres of public open space from development, meaning that we do not worsen our ability to mitigate climate change from the loss of 10,000 trees and from the negative impact that development will bring. Public open green space is more valuable to its current and future residents of Maidenhead to improve biodiversity, mitigate air pollution and help prevent some of the worst effects of climate change, such as urban heat island and surface water flooding. Can I ask that this administration uses this opportunity to implement a moratorium on house building on green space where planning has not already been granted? And what other positive and environmentally protective actions can RBWM deliver while we wait for the new NPPF in the autumn? Thank you.
I've been a great campaigner on these issues for a number of years, and I have complete sympathy with everything you're saying. I think opportunities have been missed in the past. The administration had the opportunity to put forward evidence that might attempt to justify lower housing numbers, and the Conservatives replied that they didn't want to. I can really assure you that we will be using every lever in our arsenal to do everything we can to take every single opportunity to do what we can to protect open spaces. That, you know, they're our green lung. Without those green spaces, without those trees, we're all going to suffocate. And we've got to do everything we can within the cage to pursue that objective.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. The next question is from Andrew Hill of Boyne Hill Ward, asking the following question of Councillor Bermond, lead member for Planning, Legal and Asset Management. Question is up there. If you can just wait a second while the written answer appears. That's a written response for context. Mr. Hill.
Thank you. And with respect, I don't understand the final claim made by the monitoring officer. Not only was there an allegation of a human rights breach by RBWM, but at paragraph 114 of the CPO, it is explained that any compulsory purchase begins naturally by presuming that the purchase is a breach of the human rights to peaceful enjoyment of possessions, unless that infringement is proportionate for wider benefits. The inspector concludes at paragraph 251 that the effects of the present order on smokers would be disproportionate. So this looks like an anticipatory breach of the Human Rights Act by RBWM, which only failed because the Page family fortunately took legal action. Given that the updated 5-year supply data still shows zero housing from the Nicholson site, to my knowledge, may I infer that the CPO will now need to be remade and lead to a sizable delay in the development?
Well, thank you, Mr. Hill, for your second question and for the original question. So as I referenced in that main question and answer, there is a settlement agreement that covers which covers this. And what the issue is, I think I've seen in some sort of ill-informed commentators say that this is all a backroom deal, but really it wasn't. It received the approval of the High Court. The settlement agreement, it deals with the CPO. So, and as I said in my main answer, it has quite stringent confidentiality clauses. So I can't speak much further on the actions or the steps that may occur next. I mean, obviously, you're welcome to infer what you wish from the latest 5-year housing land supply statement. That's your prerogative. But yeah, like I say, I can't comment any further on that as a member of the authority. I mean, turning to your turning to the sort of allegation regarding human rights, you're quite. It's right to say that Section 6 of the Human Rights Act makes it unlawful for a public authority to act in a way that's incompatible with a convention right, and Article 1 of the first protocol of the European Convention on Human Rights provides that no one should be deprived of possessions except in the public interest and in accordance with relevant laws. However, in this case, the process as set out in law was followed, and this included submitting for independent examination the proposed CPO. As the inspector who examined this CPO reached the view that on balance, the balance between the public interest and the deprivation of, well, he reached a view on this and basically and declined to confirm the CPO, but nevertheless, the process was followed. I'm not going to comment on the merits of that decision, but I will say that simply, as a matter of fact, at the time the decision was taken by that inspector, there was in fact no prima facie breach because no possessions had been deprived from anyone. So that's our position on that. But thank you again for your question.
Councillor Story, you have your button pressed. Is there? So, all right, so mistake then. Okay. Next question is again from Andrew Hill of Boyne Hill Ward, asking the
Mr.
following.
Mayor, I think Councillor Hunt was just saying that. It was Councillor Hunt who had her hand raised.
Certainly, sorry.
Aaron, have you not swapped over? Oh, right. Oh, now it is, yes. Yes, this is very interesting, and thank you both for the response and the supplementary response.
Excuse me, can I stop you there? You can only bring up a point of order. It's not a debating point. It's just being answered, the question. If you can hold off, okay? Thank you very much. Next question from Councillor Andrew Hill of Boyne Hill Ward, please. Asking the question of Councillor Berman's lead member for planning, legal and asset management.
Thank you for promoting me, but no, I'm just a member of the public.
Okay, sorry to promote you inadvertently. And again, your question and the written response is appearing on the slide now as well for context. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Councillor Jones. It is so refreshing to see a fair and balanced response that recognises the importance of public objections. I'm particularly pleased that you focus on Section 27 written recommendations, as officers did not highlight their importance to councillors at the recent audit committee. One recommendation for the Nicholson sale, for example, warned that the council had not formally documented its approach to the shopping centre's valuation, its calculations, or its appetite for risk. They each called for reviews and monitoring of progress. Do you, Councillor Jones, agree that these serious Section 27 lessons from the public objections should be expressly considered by the audit panel so that they can monitor progress against them and ensure they are achieved?
Both for your question and your supplementary. We are committed to ensuring that the council give full regard to the control observations and the recommendations arising from the 1920 audit to make it less likely in the future that there is a cause for objections to be submitted. I believe that the chair of audit has considered a review following the last audit meeting, and I believe again that a review of all recommendations from the 1920 audit will be added to the forward plan. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. We now move on to the next item on the agenda item 6. In accordance with the Council Procedure Rule 9, public participation. A petition has been submitted by Henry Perez of Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury Ward. The full text of the petition is set out on the screen, which should be arriving now. Henry Perez, if you'd like to take the stand. The petition is thus: we, the undersigned, petition the Rural Borough of Windsor Main to provide a bus service to all main roads in Wraysbury, keeping residents connected with vital services, including Datchet Health Centre, as well as our two local villages of Horton and Datchet, plus Windsor Town Centre. The borough has current funding to support this in line with the government national bus strategy. If not, the bus service should be funded by the Rural Borough of Windsor Mainhead. Mr. Perez, you have 5 minutes to present the petition.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, members of the Cabinet, I am Henry Perez and my colleague Graham Cribben is sitting in the public area. We are both Wraysbury residents and we represent Horton and Wraysbury villages. Our connection with the number 10 bus route goes back to December 2017 and includes our involvement in submitting a petition, arranging 2 public meetings, the setting up of a Facebook group named Replacement Number 10 Bus, liaison with Courtney Buses, now Thames Valley Buses, and the then Borough Rep, Darren Gooch, aimed at establishing a fit for purpose of timetable and route. Prior to COVID raising its ugly head on the number 10, which was funded by Heathrow, provided a reliable service with routes into Windsor, Slough and Heathrow. In March 21, we heard the disappointing news that Heathrow was to stop funding the service. The last service of the number 10 was in April 21, leaving Wraysbury without a bus service operating via Welly Road, the spine of its most populated area. Despite ongoing communications since then with the borough, mainly via Mr. Golobec, and phone conversations with Councillor Hassler, stressing our need for a bus service, regular or limited, to date, our village has not been provided with either. We are both committed to a regular bus service for the whole of Wraysbury, linking our village to our 2 neighbouring villages of Horton and Datchet. Our 3 villages have a close bond, sharing 1 doctor's surgery, 1 senior school, 3 ward councillors, and for many of the residents sharing events on our village greens and other venues. In asking for a bus service, we do so on behalf of the whole community, whatever their ages. For the children living in Horton that don't qualify for school transport, the bus would be a very valuable asset. Residents of whatever age looking for employment need to look beyond our 3 villages. Bus transport is necessary for them to attend job interviews and work venues. For many residents prevented from venturing beyond their villages during the restrictions of COVID from March 20, remain confined to their locality because there is now no bus. Residents without their own transport need a bus service. Offers of a lift by friends, family, or charity, although most welcome, does not replace the independence they crave. They, like everyone, warrant the opportunity to return to a near normal life following the restrictions. A bus service would help remove them from their current isolation and loneliness. The list of reasons for bus service are numerous and includes shopping, sightseeing, attending sporting events, swimming pools, libraries, places of worship, or just to have a break from their daily routines, not forgetting attendance at doctors, or an opportunity to obtain bus connections to other destinations. For many, a bus is their lifeline. During our communication with Mr. Golobec, we have made a number of suggestions in relation to Thames Valley buses, Bear buses, and the White bus on how they could assist. We also conducted a poll as to which days would be best if we were offered a limited bus service. The lack of a bus service in Wraysbury to connect our villages with shops and medical facilities must be considered detrimental to sustainable travel and adds to already high levels of pollution in our village. When the Royal Borough announced it was extending its review to April 24, we considered that a step too far and decided to submit our petition. Throughout our communication with the Royal Borough, we have kept our 3 parish councils and the NAGs updated and liaised with the chairpersons of each parish council the wording and reasons for our petition. Today, we present our petition with the full support of our 3 parish councils and the huge percentage of our adult population that gave 1,675 signatures for this petition. We should mention that there is a 305 bus which runs from Staines to Collinbrook via Staines Road, Wraysbury High Street and Coppermill Road, and the new number 5 bus which goes from Slough to Heathrow with stops in Datchet and Horton. Both these services appear to work well for the communities they serve. Neither of these services are accessible to the majority of Wraysbury residents. Our petition for a regular service 7 days a week that operates a route from Windsor, Datchet into Wraysbury via Welly Road, Windsor Road, Staines Road, Hythe End, Staines Road, Wraysbury High Street, Station Road, Coppermill Road, Horton, Datchet, ending back in Windsor, rather than rerouting an existing route. This would assist passengers to pick up connections with the 305 and the number 5. Before I conclude, I'll read this paragraph first. My conclusion paragraph was by saying that a bus means such a lot to our residents. And at last Wednesday's coffee morning, when I told the attendees that we had sufficient signatures to present the petition here today, the applause that we received, one would have thought that the petition had been granted.
Mr. Paris, we're at the end of time.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Hill, would you like to respond, please?
Mr. Mayor, I've got quite a long response. I beg your indulgence, and at the end I'll finish off with a motion, which I think is point B on the agenda. In response to the above petition, acknowledging the significant number of signatures that this has attracted, officers have been taking the following steps over recent months. Prior to the COVID pandemic, RBWM ranked bottom of the local authorities nationally in terms of average bus trip per head of population. The causes were varied and included the geographic nature of the borough, levels of affluence in part, and also the result of high car ownership and bus services that are over time declining in frequency. The COVID pandemic had a significant impact on bus service across the borough in this area specifically. Heathrow withdrew its funding of the Route 10 bus, which provided some links locally, and the budget pressures experienced meant that the council was no longer had the opportunity to step in, or was able to step in. Since the pandemic, the whole of the borough and the country have experienced substantial changes in travel habits. Inflation exceeds targets and cost pressures on the bus operators resulted in higher costs. Whilst the government has provided some funding to keep services going, this isn't sufficient to maintain the status quo since October 2022. The buses have been operating on interim routes. That's a very important point. However, in this case, in the east of the borough, this did provide us with the opportunity to extend the 308 route, incorporating Datchet as well. The wider picture has included the need to review the whole of the borough network. The aftershocks of the pandemic continue to be felt, and whilst the council has to re-tender for the support of bus services, there is substantial evidence that on a like-for-like basis, the costs could increase by 40 to 60%. Despite RBWM Cabinet approving additional funding for the bus services for the financial year 23-24, this is still not sufficient to cover the whole cost of all the routes. As a result, some decisions need to be made. Officers recognise that the Wraysbury service are suboptimal and have commissioned discussions with operators following agreement with the lead member for transport. That's me. This was written generically, obviously, to investigate the feasibility of Windsor to Staines route incorporating Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury, with the idea of buses operating in both directions throughout the day. The frequency and the coverage across the day will depend on the costs involved in setting up such a service, and this detail will not be available until the tender is complete. However, it would include making the service available to students in local schools, with the start time scheduled to allow timely arrival, and collection from the schools. The request, however, to serve all parts of Wraysbury area is included in this investigation. Due to the geographical nature of the area, there is no simple solution, with either longer routes that would involve driving the same route twice or alternating services being investigated. It is highly likely that a service of this nature will replace the existing 308 route, given the overlaps of roads served. However, as part of this reply, it is important to advise that improvements in services in one area cannot be done without impacting the rest of the network, given the financial challenges the bus industry is facing. It is proposed that a paper is presented at Cabinet in September to seek approval to tender for these routes. Not much more to go, guys. Considering the viable and financial affordability, allowing officers to formally engage with bus operators to obtain quotes for the services sought. This paper will not include all routes currently served, with the information on those routes potentially affected to be shared during the approval process. Even then, only when the tender process is complete, will RBWM have the information required to determine which routes can be committed for the next 5 years. My recommendation, Mr. Mayor, if I may make one motion, is that the petition will be taken into account or into consideration along with other feedback as part of the bus service Cabinet paper in September. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Mayor and councillors.
Do we have that? Do we have that covered, that proposition? Do we have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Jones. I would now like to ask the ward councillors for the affected area if they would like to speak about this, particularly councillors Buckley, Grove and Larkham. I can see we have Councillor Grove.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to take a moment to say a big thank you to Mr. Perez and Mr. Cribbin for their unwavering commitment to this cause, and also to all the volunteers who helped collect signatures on this petition, and of course, everybody who signed it. Now, I'm not going to ask how many people within this chamber have actually ventured to the most easterly region of our borough, but I would recommend that if you get the chance, you really should visit Wraysbury. What you will find is a beautiful historic village with amazing community links, some beautiful places to eat and enjoy your time, and some lovely, attractive green spaces by the riverside. But being at the furthest reaches of this borough also brings with it its own challenges. And needless to say, the residents of Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury have often felt ignored and overlooked. I dare say that by the previous administration, they felt it was a bit of a case of out of sight and out of mind. Mr. Perez has very eloquently stated the reasons why Wraysbury needs this bus service. And for my part, as one of the 3 ward councillors for the ward, I can only confirm and add my agreement to the points which he raised. In fact, the requirement for a regular bus service cannot be ignored, and it's a topic which was often brought up to us whilst we were campaigning during the election and is still a focus now. It's impossible not to grasp the importance of such a service when sat opposite a 90-year-old resident who is explaining how a bus would help her mitigate and avoid many of the detrimental effects of isolation and help restore her independence. And it's not just about the people who are isolated, as Mr. Perez mentioned. The residents of Wraysbury have stoically accepted the realities of service reduction. As mentioned, there is no doctor's surgery and there is no senior school within the village. And no resident is asking for the introduction of these costly public services, but they do ask for a means of being able to reach the places where these services are located. And that doesn't feel particularly unreasonable to me. Let's not also forget that a bus would help remove cars from the road. thus reducing traffic on already congested routes and helping the borough to become more green and more environmentally friendly. Being under the flight path and very close to Heathrow and close to both the M4 and M25 motorways means that the ward, Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury, desperately needs solutions which will help reduce pollution and improve air quality. Finally, of course, I am not unaware of financial constraints that we face as a council and greatly appreciate the hard work and efforts the new administration are going to ensure RBWM's financial future and stability. My hope is that when assessing requirements and priorities going forwards, the needs of our Wraysbury residents will feature, because for some people within our towns, a bus service is a nice additional option for transport. But as Mr. Perez said, for the people in our more rural villages and areas, it is often a lifeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Do any of the ward councillors wish to speak? Councillor Buckley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As an elected representative of Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury, can I firstly thank the residents of Wraysbury for bringing this petition to the council. All three villages of Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury have pulled together to support this petition for Wraysbury residents. It shows that we are a strong community that pulls together when needed. As in every part of the borough, residents have felt neglected, forgotten and overlooked. This new council has been elected to stop this rot and to give residents a voice. Wraysbury has spoken. Now the council must listen. The fact that this petition with such support has reached the full council speaks volumes to the need of this community. Even though we as a council are facing huge budgetary restrictions caused by a decade or more of mismanagement of public finances, we should not ignore the voices of Wraysbury. We need to work together to find imaginative and progressive solutions to supply residents a sustainable public transport service that they have asked for. It is our duty to start to build a local economy that will create income streams to support the public services our residents need. Public transport is essential to the success of all our policies, from environmental to business. Therefore, this should be a priority investment for this council. Let us all work together to supply Wraysbury with the support that they have asked for. This is not just an opportunity for speeches tonight. Mr. Mayor, sorry, I can't hear, sorry. But this is not just an opportunity for speeches tonight, but it's an opportunity for this council to show residents things have changed. It is not our words, but our actions that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. If no other ward councillors wish to speak, I shall now open the debate to the rest of the council chamber, and we'll run through in order. I believe that first to speak is Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could we have on the screen the wording for the motion put forward by Councillor Hill? And I'd like to thank Councillor Hill for the full information he gave.
If you could read it out again.
I will do. My motion is that the petition will be taken into account along with the other feedback of part of the bus service cabinet paper in September 2023.
Is that clear? While we're waiting for that to come up, is that clear, Councillor Hunt, what the proposition is?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but I would have preferred to see it on the screen. And any motions coming forward in future, I prefer to see on the screen. Thank you.
It's on the way. You'll notice I'm not offering to help here. This is out of my experience code. So. That's the motion as proposed. Councillor Hunt, if you'd like to carry on.
Yes, thank you, sir.
You said you want to continue to speak. We asked you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next to speak is Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the first thing to say is, recognising the effort it goes into put these petitions together. So, Mr. President, the residents should be acknowledged for that. It's no mean feat. I'm a bus fan. I use the number 7 in Cots Green, and it's when you're sitting on buses that you realise how important it is to so many different people. And Councillor Grove has already made that point, as is the petition. But I think it's the point that Councillor Hill made there about how a decision on one part of the network is going to have an impact on other parts of the network. I would add to that. I think that whenever we're looking at something like this, we have to look at the traffic network, the system that it's part of. And it's not just about bus routes. I would be encouraging any decision like this to be set against things like traffic measures that are put in place, parking strategies and pricing around parking, incentives to travel in different ways, active travel. All these things are part of the behaviours that residents are part of, and buses form part of that wider picture. So Councillor Hill's already mentioned the review of the bus service in its own right, but there's also a sustainable travel policy that's being developed as well. So I would sort of encourage, as we take that petition forward, that it should be offset against all the other decisions that are currently ongoing around travel generally in the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moriarty. Councillor Bermenge, please.
Thank you. I'll be brief, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring up the question of sort of partnership working, especially in this environment where finances are really tight. And to point out for a start that looking at the Halton and Wraysbury neighbourhood plan, and I'm sure you know I love a neighbourhood plan, there's a non-plan action within that, which actually calls upon the parish councils to work in partnership with the borough council to look at possibilities for new bus routes, possibly a hopper bus route service. And I think it's really important that when you see that residents have not only answered in great numbers this petition, but also have voted for a neighbourhood plan which includes provisions such as that those thoughts are certainly taken into full account by this borough. Also, they're trying to think about partnership working and innovation. I understand there used to be some kind of shuttle service which was operated by the community pharmacist. Correct me if I'm wrong. And also, I'm not sure what may have happened to that, but it sounds like that was withdrawn. I know that wouldn't really go far enough, but it was something, and it would. I understand that it did help get residents to the medical facilities in Datchet when they needed that. So again, if there's an opportunity to speak, to partners to the pharmacists and understand, where that went, that I think would be valuable. And finally, of course, the big one is Heathrow, and we've mentioned that they withdrew funding for Route 10, which has partly led to the situation that we find today. I know there's a Heathrow Area Transport Forum, which is quite active. I don't see that we are currently sitting there as full members of that. but they talk about bus routes and surface access to the airport, and I think they're very keen to show that they're a good neighbour, and I think we do, as a council, need to be putting some more pressure on Heathrow Airport to deliver. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burmenge, and Councillor John Story.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mayor. Many users of bus services in our area, Ascot, Sunninghill and Sunningdale, are the elderly and people with disabilities, and I'm sure exactly the same is true for the users in Wraysbury, Horton and Datchet. Councillor Hill may be aware of government guidance published just over a year ago, which encourages local authorities to consider what is called demand responsive transport systems. And this is particularly useful for rural areas. And these are schemes where bus services run without a set timetable, using smaller vehicles, and where people, if they want a bus, they use the phone or go online to book one. It's being used in several places throughout the UK today, and Councillor Hill may wish to include this in his September Cabinet paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Story. Next to speak is Councillor Wisdom de Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I applaud the residents of Datchet, Horton, Wraysbury and the parish councillors for bringing this petition before us. I think Councillor Buckley and Councillor Grove covered well the key issues, which are if we introduce a bus service, restore a bus service, as we've seen in Windsor, if we restore it, if we haven't got it, then we have a reduction in mental health, well-being, and a sense of isolation. You've also got the fact that money locally doesn't get circulated, so there's a loss to the local economy. You've got the environmental, the air pollution. Air pollution standards are going to be increasing, so that puts a lot of pressure on us in months to come. And then, of course, very importantly, there's the impact of bus services, a good bus network, or perhaps if I take Councillor Story's view of more of a public transport solutions network, green, which then reduces our carbon footprint. All of those things are really important, and perhaps they also provide the funding solutions, not just for Horton and Wraysbury, but for Windsor, for a number 2 bus, for a restoration of the number 16, for all around this town. Perhaps we should be looking at the local enterprise partnerships to create, as Councillor Moriarty has said, a wider strategy. Look to the NHS Friendly and other ICBs or ICSs as they're now called for money. Look to Heathrow for funding. As Councillor Burmenge said, they owe us a duty of care, and perhaps they ought to be, I'm sure they will be happy to support us, let's put it that way. And then of course the climate strategy, then there is a lot of money coming around from different organisations, especially through central government. Maybe now's the time to say, well, we have to think a bit more creatively about how we raise the funds to pay for the strategy. But I would take Councillor Moriarty's proposal that we create strategy first, and of course Councillor Hill's proposal. So that would be my suggestion. Yes, we need a wider public transport solution to get people out of their cars, reduce their carbon footprint, reduce loneliness, to increase mobility, the ability to go and get jobs, not just in RBWM, which is a little borough, tiny compared to most others, but in a wider regional network, and use creative funding solutions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor de Costa. Councillor Helen Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank the residents for bringing this petition forward. It's a bit of a chicken and egg, isn't it? Because we've kind of done this to ourselves. When I was growing up, not many people had cars, so you walked or got the bus everywhere. Then we've kind of moved to cars, and of course the bus companies went, not much people getting the bus, we need to cut costs, and unfortunately services got cut. So we're trying to re-get people into using the bus again. I really welcome Councillor Hill's comments that he's going to look at this borough-wide. My father lives in the Lake District. Their bus service is second to none. They have double-deckers running very regularly up till 10 o'clock at night, connecting all the rural areas, and it's well used because it's reliable. Now, I know many people are going to be sat here thinking, what's that got to do with Maidenhead? But in the outlying areas, Datchet, Horton, Wraysbury, Ascot, Sunningdales, White Walthams, Hurley, even Bisham, you're going to have people that are going to rely on a bus a lot more that don't have access to a car. So I'd really like to ask Councillor Hill that when we think about this borough-wide, that we remember that the people that live in the towns will use buses slightly differently to those who live in rural areas, and to try and make sure that we're not doing a one-size-fits-all, because I think the way buses are used rurally and how important they are rurally is slightly different to how we connect in the towns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Helen Price.
To all the points that people are making, and I think, yes, we should consider this aspect and we should consider that aspect. I'm thinking this is going to push the decision and turning this into action further and further down the road, because we're going to try to consider it holistically, which I'm in favour of. But is there any way we can give the residents who brought the petition an indication of some sort of timescale of when something might change and they might see some action, whatever that might be? Because I feel as the discussion's going at the moment, we don't know. So does that mean in September we are going to see this being implemented, or I don't understand will we get a paper in September about how we're going to deal with it? Have we got any time frame of actually changes being seen?
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Julian Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a really interesting petition from the residents of Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury. And I think if we're going to look at the climate crisis sensibly, we need to look at how we can move people away from car transport and onto more sustainable forms of transport, such as buses and shared modes of transport. Doing buses is very difficult, but I think the suggestion from Councillor Story was actually very sensible. These short-term, small hopper buses that do operate successfully in other areas of the country should be seriously investigated, not only for Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury, but also for other areas of the borough. And I think we also need to look at how our residents can easily move from one area, such as Windsor, to Maidenhead or Ascot or wherever, across the borough easily by public transport. So just by way of example, I looked at how I could travel from my area through to here for this evening. If I wanted to travel here by bus from Sunning Hill, I can't do it at all. There is no bus that will take me from there to here. If I wanted to travel as an alternative by train, I would have a 4-hour journey, 2 hours here and 2 hours back. So it means that public transport at the moment, in any sustainable way, is totally off the rails for people. There is no substantive public transport mechanism for most people in the borough. So if we are to take seriously the issue of how we move people onto public transport, we need to be looking at all manner of different alternatives for it's people like school children. They use public transport for enormous journeys sometimes, and they have buses that work for them. We need to make sure that we use those sort of services to carry on during the day, so that they're there for children in the evening, have some of these short-term hopper buses, but make sure that people can get about the area very quickly and easily via public transport. If they can't do that, people will continue, as they do now, to use their cars, and it'll never happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp, sorry. Councillor Carol da Costa, as I think the last speaker, as we wind up the debate before going to Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think one of the things that we are struggling to support are the most vulnerable within our borough, are the people that are least able to afford their own cars and are totally reliable on public transport, and the elderly who no longer drive, either out of choice or out of physical disability to continue to drive. And I just feel that as a borough, we actually owe that to the most vulnerable people within our borough, that we look at our public transport and we make it as good as we can. And we at very least make sure that people can access hospital appointments and doctor's surgeries and dental appointments. That has to be our top priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. See, it's like a public school in here, isn't it, at times? We've now come to the end of the debate, unless any other councillors would wish to add anything. If not, then we'll go to the seconder, Councillor Lynn Jones, to summarise her piece.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely acknowledge the need for a better bus service for the villages of Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury, and thank the residents for bringing forward this petition. It is regrettable that central government has not provided sufficient funding to protect bus travel within this borough. One-off funding is not a viable solution to providing sustainable bus routes. You may have seen from papers published last week that the financial situation we find ourselves in is extremely challenging. The harsh reality is that we're forecasting currently a 4.9 million overspend for this financial year and a budget gap of 3.7 million for next. As lead member for finance, I cannot recommend committing additional ongoing funding at this time. Our reserves currently will not cover our forecast budget gap in the medium term. And our priority is to ensure our statutory services are fully funded. There is the need to obtain quotes for any proposed routes, and until those figures are available, it would not be financially prudent to make an assessment or decision. The paper Councillor Hill refers to will review all routes and put forward a recommendation based on how to serve residents in the best way possible within the finance available. I second Councillor Hill's proposal to review the proposed Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury bus routes within the Cabinet paper scheduled for September. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hill, would you like to sum up the debate?
Okay, quite a lot's been said. I thank councillors for all their contributions and the petitioner for his contribution, and all the petitioners who raised this petition, because it's hard work. I've raised a few myself over the years, as a lot of people in this chamber will know. I've made a few notes. I don't want to repeat what I've said, so I'll try and pick up on the key points that members have said, and also I'm going to not repeat what the petitioner said, because that would, just too much. We do need more buses in the furthest reaches of the borough, because I do understand that Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury do feel isolated. And Councillor Grove, I have visited on some occasions to all three areas and canvassed there as well. I do express particular concern for the elderly and also for those who are disabled and for whom a bus is the only viable option. I'm very well aware of the pollution and the air quality issues. Obviously, a bus, a mass transit vehicle that's full, I might add, is far more effective and far more efficient than a whole bunch of cars. And I'll come on to that point later. It is an important point. And I do get it that residents, certainly the 1,600 who signed the petition, and I always say for every person who signed, there's always one who really felt they don't want to put their name to something. There's probably about 3,000 people who feel neglected, cut off and overlooked. I assure people in here and also those residents, they're not neglected and overlooked. We do care. We're just finding life very difficult, as Councillor Jones sitting next to me has said. What else? I take the point about active travel, although you can't cycle everywhere. And I do like the point about partnership working with the local parish council. I think that's definitely a way forward. And I know Councillor Story, when I had buses before, I investigated dial-a bus. So I've been down this path before, and that's probably advanced, and it's a lot better when I looked at it. At the time when we looked at it, to be frank, it didn't quite work. So we didn't go with it. It's a shame Heathrow removed the number 10 service, and we will lobby to get it back. That would be reasonable. With the government funding, it's sad we haven't got enough money. I think it's £437,000. It's sitting there. It looks like a big carrot to put on another bus service, but frankly, it's just one year funding. It's just for 1 year. So if I did what I did years ago when I put the Maidenhead to Windsor service on with £180,000, we would be shutting a service down. So you'd get it for a couple of years, then it would disappear, which would frankly be unwise. I would make the other point as well. There's currently only really one service that is commercially viable, and that's the service between Maidenhead and Windsor that I put on the last time I had buses, or the transport brief. All the other services in the borough, it might not look like it, but some of them have 60% plus subsidies. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't subsidise, because socially it's the right thing to do. However, we all have to realise, with the position that Councillor Jones has made all too clear tonight, we're not in a position to subsidise indefinitely. So there is a point with buses, and I don't want to be too brutal, but if we put them on, please use them. And I make that plea to the public, please make use of them, because at the moment with some of the service, we are moving fresh air around. And I mean that quite literally. I have seen empty buses. And of course, big heavy vehicle does a lot of polluting. If there's nobody in it, the whole climate change and sustainability argument just falls to bits. So when we put services on, I beg people to use them, because I do believe in a bus service and mass transit. I think that's about enough from me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for your indulgence.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. I think you made the time back that you overran the first time.
Did I overrun again? Sorry about that.
So then, that is the debate closed. The recommendations are on the screen, that the petition will be taken into account along with other feedback at the Cabinet meeting in September 2023. Can this be agreed unanimously? Anybody against or abstentions? Thank you, that is carried. Recorded is carried. Mr. Perez, your petition was successful, and you've heard the outcome there this evening. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and for everybody who worked on that petition. We now move on to agenda item 7, which is to receive any petitions presented by members on behalf of residents. I haven't been notified of any. There are none. We move then on to agenda item number 8, which is the overview and scrutiny annual report. I believe Councillor Martin will be introducing this report. Would that be right?
Yeah. So I'm Councillor Martin, Chair of Place Overview and Scrutiny. This evening, I'm noting and considering the Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report for 2022-2023 municipal year produced by the previous administration. As the Overview and Scrutiny panels are only one meeting in, we're currently investigating our work programme for future topics. On that note, we'd also welcome topics from the general public for discussion. Since our first meetings, we have published minutes which can be found on the RBWM website for each relevant panel, where you'll find our action points and topics for future discussion from those initial meetings. My colleagues and I are looking forward to working with our panels, where we're keen to bring genuine scrutiny and heightened transparency and more awareness into the public forum. We will ensure we challenge the administrations and any contracts that haven't been fulfilled to the highest standard expected. Thank you. Did you want to say something, Josh?
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Matt.
Is that seconded? The report seconded? Do we have a seconder? Councillor De Campo. I would ask, before we proceed with the rest of the discussion about it, if Councillor Moriarty or Councillor Taylor, who I know have inherited some of the scrutiny committee's work, if they'd like to speak at all before we move into the main debate. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo what Councillor Martin said, and just to say that we're looking forward to some more transparency. We're looking forward to taking on some more subjects and working groups as well. We're very keen to delve a little bit deeper, and I know on the People Overview and Scrutiny panel we've talked about getting reports from Cabinet quicker so that we can look at items in more depth and with a bit more time. But I would just like to thank the previous administration chairs for their work, and hope that the three of us can carry the banner forward, and also thank the RBWM officers for their work, and also for promoting on social media that the public can give subjects for the panels to discuss. Thank you.
Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, sort of echoing the points that have already been made, I think what I would add to it is that we're very keen, so my role as chair of the corporate overview and scrutiny panel, is how we can build a collaborative yet positively challenging, I think is the way I would view it, relationship with the executive, because we want to get to the best results as quickly as possible. So rather than letting programmes and projects rumble on to then call something back, there's an opportunity to get into the thinking, critical thinking, I think, at a very early stage. So I think that's the kind of the values we want to bring to these panels, talking to my colleagues here. And I think the big thing for me as well is ensuring that the public understand what these panels are for. They understand how they can contribute to it, and we do everything to support that, because at the end of the day, we're here to support residents and represent them. So more of that. Thank you.
Now we've heard from the three chairs of the scrutiny panels where their report is rolled up into the single report. We move into the rest of the debate. Councillor Amy Teasing.
Mr. Mayor, just a very quick point. It's just to note that on page 3 of the report, it has the previous members of the People Overview and Scrutiny panel, and I was a member, but I've been left off. So could the report just be amended to make note of that, please? That's all.
Councillor Teasing, that is noticed. Will be added. Councillor Helen Price.
Thank you. The change in the layout of this report and the style is to be commended, and it makes what was previously a very dry report much more attractive to read, and by that I hope that means it's more attractive for residents to read, and it clearly lays out for residents and ourselves what each panel is responsible for, and all of that is to be welcomed. However, something that I tried to do in the last few years was to look at how we could critically look at what we have done in the Overview and Scrutiny panel, be open about that and learn from it and move on. And that's what I feel to some extent is missing from these reports, looking back over the previous years. There is no connect about what was said a year ago in these reports the panels would do in the last year to see whether we have done it. So there's a lot of good quantitative data there. And again, I welcome that. But I think there's a lack of qualitative data looking back. These reports were not considered by the panels, and I assume that's because the panel constituents changed. And I think possibly we're the poorer for that. The other thing that struck me, and it's the first time that I've been a councillor when it's happened, if there's been an election, is there seems to have been 4, 5, 6 months of us not achieving much, because we were about to go into an election, and then the panels were to be reconstituted, and then everybody was new. And I feel if we could look at how we could not lose that valuable time in 4 years' time, that would be of great value. But I very much welcome the style and the presentation, and the clerk who produced it is to be commended for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Reeves.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak about ONS. As an active member of one of the ONS panels, you know, I'm genuinely looking forward to actually being able to take the public with us on this actual decision and to be able to question the decisions and the working of the council. I do feel that having this exposed and the transparency to the public really does give them a voice to be able to actually question and to understand all the decisions and the workings of their council. I do feel that some residents do feel a bit lost and have been lost in previous administrations about the way that this administration has worked. And I would welcome the simple terms and to continue that so that it is clearly understandable rather than trying to bamboozle people with lots of regulations that they will not understand as easily. I do feel as a member of the corporate ONS, we have already had suggestions and a strong list of items that we want to call in, including, for example, the contract management workings of this council, which we feel does require significant oversight and scrutiny. I'm looking forward to bringing that forward to our future panel, as I do think that there is work to be done on that. But as I say, one of my main points is to take the public with us and to give them a further voice and insight into the workings of this council. And I think that ONS is positioned perfectly to do that. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Gert Singh.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few words. I do have some reservations about the overview and scrutiny report, especially for the place panel. I think it's a bit light. While it outlines responsibilities such as planning, infrastructure and economic growth, the report lacks the depth of scrutiny required for such critical matters. The limited call-ins and the brief examination of topics are concerning. You know, they leave important questions unanswered. As we move forward, I think it's imperative that the place panel commits to a more thorough and proactive approach. We must prioritise comprehensive analysis and meaningful call-ins, and also transparency in decision-making. Our community deserves a place panel that diligently examines issues impacting our environment, neighbourhoods, and just general overall well-being. I think it's a good opportunity now to seize and to strengthen the overview and scrutiny process and ensure that decisions we make are well informed and in the best interest of our residents. Together, I'm sure we can build a more accountable and vibrant borough driven by transparency, responsibility and progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Simon Werner.
Thank you very much. Scrutiny should be a vital part of the working of the council. And I think it's obvious to everyone that was involved that scrutiny clearly hasn't been working over the last 16 years. Scrutiny has failed to be allowed to properly scrutinise the decisions of the executive and acted more like an overview committee, with most reports being summarised at the end of the meeting as, isn't the executive doing rather well? I want to see that change. I want to see scrutiny becoming an independent partner to the executive, suggesting improvements to the way the council works. There is so much that needs to be fixed after the last 16 years. The executive just cannot do it all. And so I'm asking all the councillors to work together to put right the many aspects of the council that have been going wrong. I use the word independent about scrutiny, and I think that that is really important. I think it is vital that the executive does not interfere with the running of scrutiny. I've not been involved in the choosing of the chairs of scrutiny. I will not be whipping councillors to vote in a certain way, and I will not be telling scrutiny what they must look into. I'm really excited by the comments we've had by the new chairs of the three scrutinies in this meeting. I think it's going to be a really positive change, and I'm really looking forward to the executive working with the scrutiny. This will be quite a change for scrutiny, but it's an important change, and I'm really looking forward to seeing scrutiny set free. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Councillor Wisdom de Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor. a number of years back, we changed the ward boundaries. We went from 51 councillors, I believe, to 42 councillors. That was a fundamental change in the way we could do scrutiny. In previous generations, in previous times, we had more councillors to take a share of the workload. And that resulted in councillors being able to delve deeper and come up with some of the issues that they needed answers to. I mean, let's just take one panel, for example. Each panel we have nowadays is way too big. Just take place, for example. We've got planning in terms of local planning authorities, setting planning regulations, as well as delivering the training and the officers actually producing those the recommendations. Infrastructure, sustainability and economic growth. Each of those a massive topic. Neighbourhoods, again, looking at the various council areas that we have, it's a big area. And the healthy partnerships and community development, again, each of those is a huge area. One of the massive problems we have since the last, not this election, but the time before when we went through the boundary review is that we have too few councillors to do too much work. It's impossible for any group of councillors to get their heads around. Just have a look at people, adult services. It's a topic in itself. Children's services, schools and education, environmental health, housing, public health. Each of those is enormous and has huge consequences for the lives and well-being and the livelihoods of our children, of our adults, of the vulnerable people in our society. So this is a big challenge we have, is how do we get effective scrutiny when we're basically looking at a huge storm and there's just one or two of us to deal with them huge ranges of issues. I don't have an answer to that, but we need to find a way of making scrutiny really effective, and as effective, if you like, as it was 4, 5, 6 years ago. It's a big challenge. Every single councillor here as a member of a scrutiny panel wants to do their best, but we all come with certain ranges of skills and certain ranges of expertise, and it doesn't match perhaps even maybe one of the topics within an overview and scrutiny panel, but not all 6 of the areas. So let's be under no illusions. Overview and scrutiny is tough now, and we need to find ways of, I think Councillor Moriarty said, collaboration, working with residents, working with external people, and taking their issues seriously to be able to make it effective again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Councillor Julian Tizzy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like, first of all, to echo what I've heard from Councillor Reeves, who, like me, is a new member of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Panel. And I think it is our intention to be genuinely a scrutiny panel. I wear another hat on this. I'm also the chair of the Audit and Governance Committee, and so, if you like, I'm scrutiny doubled, I guess. I would also like to thank Councillor Werner for very kind comments. I think that is the right. I can assure you that I feel independent and I feel ready and willing to challenge Cabinet as and when required. And I do note that on the very last page of our pack, page 74, when you look at the meetings that held in the last year, 4 and 7 meetings, there were a number of recommendations in all of those, 2, 2 and 3. Now, maybe I'm new to this, so I recognise that perhaps I misunderstand these things, but that 2 seems like a rather small number for a year of recommendations to Cabinet. So I'm hoping that those numbers will improve and that we can be constructive friends working ultimately to make sure that this borough runs as efficiently and as effectively as possible, and we genuinely provide scrutiny to assist the Cabinet in making the right decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Julian Tizzy. Councillor Adam Burmans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The role of that overview and scrutiny can play in holding an authority's decision makers to account makes it fundamentally important to the successful functioning of a local democracy. Effective scrutiny helps secure the efficient delivery of public services and drives improvement within the authority itself. Conversely, Poor scrutiny can be indicative of wider governance, leadership and service failure. It is vital that councils know the purpose of scrutiny, what effective scrutiny looks like, how to conduct it and the benefits it can bring. Authorities with effective scrutiny and scrutiny arrangements in place share certain traits, most important being a strong organisational culture. Authorities who welcome challenge and recognise the value scrutiny can bring reap the benefits. But this depends on strong commitment from the top, from the senior members as well as senior officers. So you probably guessed these aren't my words, but actually I've taken these from forward from the May 2019 statutory guidance, which was issued by then junior local government minister called Rishi Sunak. Some of his finest work, I think. But joking aside, this is really important. I think it's all about the tone from the top, but giving scrutiny that freedom to really get to grips with with issues. I think being that critical friend is really essential to a good administration. And as Councillor Werner has already said, and others as well, we really welcome that opportunity. There is going to be, we are looking at the Constitution as a whole. We know it hasn't been fully reviewed since 2018. A big area that we'll be wanting to look at is the way overview and scrutiny work. But I want to reiterate, this can't come from the administration. This has got to come from the members. So there is going to be a cross-party working group looking at all matters to do with the Constitution, and I think it's quite likely that effective overview and scrutiny will be a big part of that. We can write all we like, of course, in a constitution and give provisions to make things more proactive and less reactive. But at the end of the day, it's not the words on the paper, but it's how members approach this, and that comes both how the administration approach it, but of course how members at large take part in producing an effective scrutiny function at the council. So I look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange. Councillor Reeve, you already spoke earlier in the debate. You can only speak once in a debate, unless it's a point of order or personal explanation. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Lynn Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Constructive scrutiny is the foundation of transparency in our council. Scrutiny has not worked in this council since I was elected in 2011, in my opinion. It wasn't valued and it wasn't listened to. That culture does need to change. And I feel from the words spoken in this chamber that it has started to. I really look forward to working with panels going forward and hope we can bring more transparency, more scrutiny and earlier reports, maybe even draft ones. That would be absolutely wonderful to get those comments in before things are finalised. So thank you for taking this forward in the right way.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Del Campo, as a seconder, would you like to speak at this point, or?
Thank you. So I joined this council as an opposition councillor in 2019, and can only echo the comments that others have made. It has been frustrating. I often say, it's all overview and no scrutiny, and the overview is really important. We mustn't lose sight of that, but scrutiny is just so important. It can't be missed. And as cabinet members, we're really looking forward to it, because we've got a tough job ahead of us, and we want the help of all members to make good, defensible decisions. So thank you everyone for your hard work, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next 4 years bring. Thank you.
Councillor Martin, as the introducer of this and proposer, therefore, is there anything you wish to say to sum up before we go to the vote?
Thanks, actually, so just go ahead with the proposal. Thank you.
So the proposition was to note the report and consider the work of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel in 2022-2023 municipal year. Do we all agree unanimously to note that report? Any against or abstentions? That is therefore carried. The next item we move to is Councillor Questions. I'll just wait until we. Okay. The responses to these questions are very lengthy, the written responses. So we'll crack on as we do with these. The first question was from Councillor Larkham, asking the following question of the Councillor Coe, lead member for Environmental Services. Is the question coming up or just the answer? Yeah, the question. Councillor Larkham's question up there. The written response is available online because it's a very big and long response. Councillor Larkham, have you got a supplementary question to us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do in fact have a supplementary question for Councillor Coe. Thank you for the answer. After many years of assurances, the former administration was not only unwilling and or unable to make the mandatory partnership funding contribution, but also some individuals were clearly and deliberately disingenuous and conspired to hide the truth until it was too late to respond. What action is the new administration now going to take to correct 3 decades of discrimination and injustice? And I will take the short answer if that's okay.
The previous administration threw away a sort of once in a lifetime opportunity, because obviously now the council's financial position is significantly worse than when Channel 1 was first considered. I don't want to tell people in Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury we're suddenly going to find £50 million or the Channel 1 scheme is now going to go ahead. That's a very distant prospect. I did have a briefing today, in fact, with the team regarding the Datchet to Hyde End scheme, which I know that you're not very impressed with, Councillor. That scheme has spent 2 years with the Environment Agency being developed, and the end of those 2 years of work is a range of options, which are we could improve the protection of individual properties, or we could build a channel similar to Channel 1. And there are 8 tiers of options. And why did it take 2 years to come up with that? I don't know. I think we could have come up with that at the pub in about half an hour. That scheme is now going through into another process of consultation, which will last another 2 years to form a more detailed business case. But it seems to me that the Environment Agency's whole modus operandi now is to delay applications for flood relief so that they don't have to fund them. That goes on and on and on. The good news in it is simply that at this stage, a flood relief channel is an option in that process, but I wouldn't suggest anybody holds their breath.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. Second question tonight is again from Councillor Larkham, asking the following question, which will appear very shortly, of Councillor Coe, again, lead member of Environmental Service. Again, it's a long answer to this on a similar theme. Have you got a supplementary question, Councillor Larkham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a short supplementary question.
Proceed.
Thank you. The Environment Agency does not appear to have a coherent plan. I have a plan. What action is the new administration now going to take to correct 3 decades of discrimination and injustice against the people of Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury. Thank you.
Question you, and I don't think I have anything to add to my previous answer, but I will of course meet with you in due course about other matters we're already discussing with regards to more minor relief of flooding in Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury.
Thank you very much, councillors. Agenda item number 10 is motions on notice. This evening we have 4 motions for consideration. Each motion can be debated for a maximum of 30 minutes. The mover of the motion will have the right to reply before the motion is then put straight to the vote. Our first motion is set out on the screen and has been submitted by Councillor Hill. Councillor Hill, would you like to introduce your motion?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This motion is to reduce the number of signatures required on a petition at full council from 1,500 signatures to 1,000 signatures. And I'll say a few words. When I first joined this council, it was indeed 1,000. The signature limit was increased under a previous Conservative leader some time ago. And I pledged that if ever we came to power, I'd seek to get it reduced back to the sensible and reasonable level of 1,000 signatures. A cynic would say that as many petitions were coming to the council, and I was bringing a few, that's pushed against Conservative policy, that it was a deliberately contrived move to limit democratic debate and to reduce resident influence on the decision-making process, something which is very anti-democratic. As I will know, 1,000 signatures is a tough number to hit, and to get it requires significant resident support and a lot of effort to achieve. I know this as I've raised quite a lot of signatures, quite a lot of petitions in my previous few years. So I ask members to support this motion, and let's have a little bit more democracy and resident interaction in the borough. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, or in the council chamber, I should say. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Berman, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right till the end of the debate?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think that it's a really important part of our council's relationship with residents, that we have a strong petition process. Increasing community involvement and engagement is a fundamental purpose in our constitution. So I'm really supportive of Councillor Hill's very straightforward motion here. Petitions give us an opportunity to discuss borough-wide issues, but as we've seen this evening, they also bring a degree of equity to issues that are affecting residents in more remote parts of the borough, and bring those to the minds of all members. We've got to recognise, of course, debates in full council can't occur for every single petition which is raised and submitted. So it's important to find a reasonable balance. But I strongly, I support this number of 1,000. I think it was the number that was there for many years. Before it was upped a few years ago, which of course Councillor Hill's explained his thinking behind the reasons there. So yeah, I'm very happy about this motion, happy to support it, but I just wanted to bring to council attention one other matter related to this, which I think is important. So I think it must have been sometime last summer, there was a fundamental change to the way e-petitions work at the council. There was previously, you may have been aware, I'm sure many people in this room have signed 1 or 2 in their time, that you'd simply put in your email address and your details, and then validate it with the email that comes into your box, and you've signed the petition. That's now all changed. There's now a system where you have to have a special user login account to do this. It's fundamentally had a chilling effect, I think, on the process, and it's not serving residents at all well. I was fortunate to have a petition, and I managed to get that petition as lead petitioner above 1,500, that was 100% online e-petition. If we have a look, since this change has been brought in, the first big petition was, in fact, it was one of the lead petitioner was asked a question this evening, and that was the air pollution monitoring. In that case, 76% of the respondents or signatories were paper-based, and this evening, I think it's gone as high as 83% for the Wraysbury bus petition. So what was before a very straightforward system, and in fact a system which was quite, parallel to what Parliament used in their debate, in their petition, e-petition systems, it has somehow become a lot more complicated than it needs to be, I believe. So it's an issue I want to be exploring further, I hope, with democratic services, and hopefully we can come to a reasonable and practical solution to that. At the end of the day, I'm sure e-petitions are, in terms of officer resource and officer time, have got to be surely more straightforward to deal with than going through reams and reams of handwritten signatures. So I think it's a win-win, but I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burmage. And can I ask, just have a pause there while people move around the chamber, rather than have them appear on YouTube. Councillor Joshua Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hill brought a motion very similar to this to Council a few years ago when he brought it in as part of the previous administration's constitutional amendments. This was actually seconded by yourself, Mr. Mayor, back in June 2020. At the time, I remember that Councillor Campo commented that how 1,000 signatures was a good level because it was good enough for people with genuine concerns to be able to reach the council chamber, but it was at a level where actually the things that were brought to the council chamber were significant to a significant number of people. I actually asked a petitioner a few years ago why they chose the petition route, and they said to me that they had to go through a petition because the administration at the time wouldn't engage, wouldn't answer emails, and wouldn't speak to them. And that's why they had to bring a petition, which is really sad to hear. And actually something that I know as this new administration will be changing because we're already engaging with residents and groups that the previous administration refused to engage with. The only other voice that was heard in that June 2020 motion was the ex-leader of the council, who said he didn't support this, although absolutely no reason was given for it. Why was the ex-leader of the council the only other person to speak on that? Because a closure motion was put forward, Mr. Mayor, by the Conservatives, allowing nobody else to speak. Hopefully, residents will see tonight that there's a different way of doing things and there are no closure motions here, and the openness and transparency that have been running through all of this meeting and previous meetings will hopefully come through. I would be very keen to hear what the Conservatives in the room have to say about this, because when this was brought to us in June 2020, every single one of them voted against reducing the number of petitions. Every single one of them said they wanted to keep it at 1,500. But obviously, because of that closure motion, nobody was able to hear why, and they weren't able to give their probably very, very valid, succinct and well thought out reasons for that. So I would be really interested to hear what those reasons are, and if they still support those reasons, or if they've changed their mind in the last few years and why they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Helen Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I really welcome this coming back to councillors' motion. It's very difficult to gain 1,500 signatures. And I think what we need to remember is as well, not all residents are comfortable engaging with the council. A lot of residents feel then, the council isn't approachable, they're not sure of the processes. And some residents who might have really strong feelings about things just possibly don't go down the petition route because they just don't feel that that's a route they can take. Now, I know personally I've had a lot more emails since the election, and I'm pretty sure that most other councillors sat in this room will have as well. And it's encouraging to speak to fellow councillors who are saying, they're dealing with so much more casework, they're getting, replies quicker, they're managing to deal with situations. And that does make me think that what Councillor Reynolds has said is that now we may be in a situation where things that might have gone to petition maybe won't, because they're being dealt with quicker. They're being dealt with by councillors, collaborating with other councillors and officers. And that really does give me a positive view of where we're going as councillors and as a council at the moment. So I'm quite happy to support this motion. I think 1,000 is a very good number to ensure that significant issues are coming to petition. And I'm confident that this is a good way to move forward to increase democracy and make sure residents do have that voice. Thank you.
Councillor Reeves.
Thank you very much. Listening to everyone else, I think obviously all our fellow councillors have made really good points. I think I just wanted to bring it back to, sense of reality. Why are we actually in this council, being a new councillor? And it's because I'm actually standing here, or I should say sitting here, it's because of the actual residents that I represent. And it's their trust in me that I am going to represent their voice. And I think what we should be doing is trying to also give them the opportunity for their voice to be represented clearly here in front of us. And I think by reducing this, we are actually moving even closer towards achieving that more and more for the residents that we are truly here to represent. If I look at my ward, in particular in Cox Green, to have a local ward issue brought forward to here as part of a petition, and if we had it at 1,500, our electorate, it would have to be almost 50% of our actual voting public to actually get that motion brought forward before the council. And I just think that is absolutely far too much. Even if it's affecting 30% or 20% of our residents, then it is a voice that we should be listening to. And therefore the reduction to 1,000 equates to getting us closer to that point. So I'm in full support of that on that basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Reeve. Councillor Richard Kerr.
Thank you, Mayor. And democracy should be more than just voting every 4 or 5 years, and then we go away and we do what we want for 4 or 5 years, and then 6 months before the election, we remember there's some voters and suddenly say lots of nice things. Democracy should be an ongoing process, and petition is a really good vehicle where perhaps we aren't listening well enough for members of the public to then bring it to our attention without us having to wait until we suffer a massive electoral defeat. So I really think petitions are important. I want to second what Councillor Beaumont said about the problem with the website petition system and the barrier that the registration system is to people participating. Like Adam said, a lot of us in this room have organised petitions, and I certainly know it makes it very hard to get signatures because people don't trust the council and they don't want to put all of those details into the council computer, and what, the worst case is who knows what, and the best case is you get a load of junk mail. So I want to really second that we need to sort out the website petition system so registration isn't necessary. And finally, just obviously I'm fully in support of reducing the threshold. The threshold is too high. It's a barrier to people bringing their issues to us. And if we run the rest of the council meetings more efficiently, we can afford to have a few more petitions.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Maureen Hunt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've listened very carefully to the reasons put forward for the increase to lower it from 1,500 to 1,000. When this first did come to council, the then opposition gave no valid, relevant and pertinent reasons. But, excuse me, I'm talking. I didn't say anything while you were. But they gave no valid, pertinent, relevant reasons for me to think anything other than what was put forward. So I didn't consider the reduction necessary. The arguments for that amount were far higher than what was put forward and far better vocally said. But having listened to the comments put forward tonight, I do find that taking into consideration our residents with a reduced number now applicable is most beneficial for them. And therefore I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maureen Hans. Councillor George Shaw.
I was looking through the council constitution on where there is a footnote regarding the reason for petitions. Well, it's implied for why it's increased to 1,500, that it was set by the authority to try to ensure that matters of genuine concern can be brought to the authority's attention. I don't understand why the original limit of 1,000 couldn't be deemed genuine for this reason.
Yeah.
Councillor Lynn Jones. Thank you very much, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support this. I would have loved to put forward my reasons the last time this came to council. I think I was warned during that council meeting because I was making statements as to the closure motion, and I was told I could not speak. So yes, there were no reasons put forward by the opposition at that council meeting, but that was not of our doing. So now I completely agree with everything that's been said. 1,000 is the right number, and it certainly allows villages like Old Windsor to put forward their concerns should they need to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Del Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just picking up on what Councillor Jones has said, I would like to hear from Councillor Hunt how she thought the opposition could put that forward, their coherent thoughts in the face of a closure motion. And as I've named her, she has a right of reply. Thank you.
Councillor Hunt, would you like to make a personal explanation?
Can I have the question again, please?
Certainly.
Yes, I would like to ask how you thought the opposition could put forward their coherent thoughts in the face of a closure motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'm being asked how I think those members opposite will put forward the relevant and coherent reasons. I can't speak for them. They have the mind of their own. If they wanted, and they have been in the past, very, very capable to speak up at all council meetings, but I can't speak for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Del Campo. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to be very careful about this. The reasons for increasing the limit were, as has been stated, to ensure that we had motions of genuine interest and genuine concern. And I don't really think we should need petitions if we're actually doing our job properly. If we're talking to and listening to our residents, we should be totally in tune with them. So we shouldn't really be having a lot of these petitions anyway. I understand the position that is being taken here by Councillor Hill on reducing the number from 1,500 to 1,000. But actually, I think we need to have the right balance. And I think that if there is something which is of genuine concern to residents in the area, they will get the 1,500 votes or signatures that are necessary to make it work. And if we reduce it, I think we are in danger of opening the floodgates. It may only be a trickle, but we're opening the floodgates to more petitions than actually we really need to have, because they are any of the issues that a resident may choose to bring to us
just because they decide to have a petition, any of us councillors can bring these issues to the council without a petition. There's no requirement for the petition. If we're in touch with residents, we can actually bring those issues and those matters to the council without a petition anyway. So I honestly don't see really any need for change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Moriarty.
Well, I suppose I was going to respond to one point and perhaps now I'll respond to two. I think what Councillor Sharp's just said there is kind of counter to most of the values that we've talked about in this meeting so far, whether it be the scrutiny panel or involving the public more in the work that we do. So that, you know, that's a difference of opinion. I guess, given that Councillor Hunt raised the point in the first place, and as a newbie, I'm a newbie, so a lot of this stuff is new to me. I guess rephrasing Councillor Del Campo's question, if Councillor Hunt were in the same position with a closure motion, how would you have expressed your opposition to a motion around the petition?
I think, Councillor Moriarty, I mean, it's not the spirit of a debate to ask questions backwards and forwards, unless Councillor Hunt wishes to make a personal explanation or feels she's already done it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any need for me to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Kashmir Singh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to make a brief point. It takes a lot of time and effort for residents to organise a petition and bring it to the council's ears when they're not listening. And 1,000, let alone 1,500, is more votes than a lot of the councillors who have been elected. So I don't think 1,000 is asking too much. If a council was listening previously, or they were preventing people bringing their voice to the council, that's why they had to do a petition. And then you're raising the bar so high that they won't be listening. So I think 1,000 is a pretty good compromise there. Thank you.
Councillor Singh. Councillor Wisdom de Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I welcome this clear, precise motion which will create a mechanism to allow all of our residents to participate in what Councillor Coe says is a deeper democracy. We want to bring their voice directly into this chamber, so I support the motion.
Do any of the councillors wish to speak in this debate? If not, Councillor Hill, as a proposer, if you'd like to sum up. Sorry. Councillor Douglas.
Sorry, Jeff, just from a button. As Councillor Hill knows, I brought two petitions, or the trustees of Maidenhead Community Centre brought two petitions to council. I think one was in 2017, the other was in 2019. And the debate at the moment is about what is the correct level, what's the right bar to make it sufficiently difficult that serious issues can be raised, but not too difficult. And I can say I remember at the time that getting to 1,000 was very difficult. And not that many petitions did get to 1,000. Getting to 1,500 was really, really unusual. I mean, there've been some notable petitions since then that have got much more than that, but even now, I think it's still unusual. And I have to say, I had the suspicion at the time, and I still have it, that the executive, when we got those two petitions, was perfectly well aware that 1,000 was difficult and 1,500 was not impossible.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. We're all finished, and Councillor Hill, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. An interesting debate, sort of a rerun of the past, really. I'll just sum up very, very quickly. I think one thing that's come out from Councillor Bermange, which we did discuss briefly this afternoon, is the method of obtaining signatures electronically at the moment it just drives people away. It's very poor. The gentleman who presented tonight has got about 80% of his signatures on paper. So it isn't working. And I would dearly love to see
the system go back to the way it was in the good old days, when all you had to do was log onto the council, get onto the council website, type in your name and address, and email. Camp Borough sends you an email, you click the link and you're done. And that's the way of the House of Parliament. So I really hope that we can do that to make life easy for residents. I think the point, I won't go through too many points, but the point's been made resoundingly from members that we all believe, apart from a few, that 1,000 signatures is the right sort of level. We want to open council up to residents more, have more representation from council, from residents. It's only fair, and residents have been thwarted with this 1,500 level. I've raised petitions at 1,500, and as Councillor Douglas says, it's very, very tough. I mean, the Great Park one got to 4,444, but that's a different issue altogether. If you have a localised issue, getting 1,500 is almost impossible. 1,000, you might just do it. I take issue with Councillor Hunt. I gave my reasons because I presented the motion, and I gave very, very good reasons, as I am giving tonight. The thing that killed it was the closure motion all those years ago, so fellow councillors couldn't speak, and that was grossly unfair, and it is one of the things I rebel against because it is completely anti-democratic. We've had several run-ins with closure motions, and one I had memorable behaviour traits at the time, defending the councillor next to me. I disagree with Councillor Sharp profoundly. This won't open the floodgates, but you know what? If it did, and we took a petition from residents every time we met, that would be a good thing, because that's really good engagement with the public, and it's nice to have people come and speak. While it was difficult tonight on the buses with the difficulties we have, I had a very productive conversation outside with the people who raised the petition, and I will engage with them, and so will the officers, and we will find out what's happening in Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury. I'm sure the officers have a good idea, but to raise it in that way means we can consider their perspective far more thoroughly. So I welcome more petitions. And I think that's about it from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sharp, is this a personal explanation? Well, unless it's a personal explanation, the debate is closed, and that was the summing up. Thank you. So, what we need to do then is to reset the motion, if we can have the motion on the screen for clarity. The motion proposed by Councillor Hill is that this council agrees to reduce the number of signatures required for a petition to come to full council from 1,500 to 1,000. Do we have a unanimous agreement? So I can't hear you unless you press your button. Thank you.
The point of order, there's been a dissenting voice in debate. Appropriate to take at least a show of hands, I believe. Is that in order?
Well, that's absolutely fine if we can do that. We can also, we'll see first if everybody agrees to unanimous decision. Do we all agree? No abstentions. Are you against? Okay, one against, okay. One against, everybody else in favour. Name vote. Do we have 6 people asking? We have a name vote, please. Can we carry out the name vote, please?
So I'll carry out a name vote on the motion. If you could please tell me if you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Baskerville.
For.
Councillor Beaumonge.
For.
Councillor Bond.
For.
Councillor Bra.
For.
Councillor Buckley.
For.
Councillor Del Campo.
For.
Councillor Carpenter.
For.
Councillor Coe.
For.
Councillor Carol da Costa.
For.
Councillor Wisdom da Costa.
For.
Councillor Cross.
For.
Councillor Devon Davies.
For.
Councillor Karen Davies.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Gosling, Councillor Grove, Councillor Hill, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Jones, Councillor Knowles, Councillor Larkham, Councillor Luxton, Councillor Majid, Councillor Martin, Councillor Moriarty, Councillor Price, Councillor Reeves, Councillor Reynolds, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Shaw, Councillor Singh, Councillor Kashmir Singh, Councillor Story, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Amy Teasey, Councillor Julian Teasey, Councillor Werner, and Councillor Wilson. So that's 37 for and 1 against. So the motion passes.
Thank you, and the motion is carried. I think people are wandering out for comfort breaks as we go this evening, so I won't call it a break for a comfort break. But we have a second motion now, which should go up on the screen very shortly. Look at my hair, what's been happening to it? Amazing. And this is submitted by Councillor Karen Davies. Would you like to introduce your motion, which is the motion displayed?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased to propose this motion to full council. I'm actually proposing a slightly amended motion to the one that was originally shown on the agenda. The correct motion is the one that is shown on the screen. This council agrees to undertake a community governance review, examining the issue of whether a new town council for Windsor should be formed. Councillor Wisdom da Costa raised a concern with me that those residents who live in the Windsor ward of Clwyd and Edworth West, but in Bray Parish, may feel that they were excluded from the process, and I was very happy to amend the motion to make it clear that all Windsor residents' views will be positively welcomed during this community governance review process if started. There are currently 15 parish councils, town councils and parish meetings within the borough, ranging from Cookham in the north to Sunningdale in the south and Hurley in the west to Wraysbury in the east. And I would like to pay tribute to the hard work and the effectiveness of the parish councillors and clerks who make such a positive contribution to their local area, as is often testified to by my colleagues who are fortunate enough to have parish councils in their wards. Residents in Windsor have long expressed a desire to share these benefits, and to this end, 4 years ago, 2,200 of them signed a petition calling for a Windsor Town Council, though only the 600 electronic signatures were counted as the review process was actually started without waiting for the further 1,600 paper signatures to be presented. But these are still held by the petition organiser. There was consequently much disappointment in Windsor when, despite the recommendation of the Community Governance Review being to form a town council, this recommendation was voted down by the Lutz administration when it came to full council. Otherwise, a cohort of Windsor Town councillors would have been elected in May 2023 and would already be hard at work. As Liberal Democrats, we're committed to delegating decision-making powers to the lowest practicable level of government, and the opportunity for residents to have a Windsor Town Council has been a commitment of ours for over a decade. I'm therefore extremely pleased to propose a community governance review into establishing a Windsor Town Council, and I trust that all members will support this motion, and I very much hope that all Windsor residents will take the opportunity to participate in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Carpenter, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak at the end?
Thank you. So I'm pleased to second this motion to full council. As a resident, I was involved in the last campaign for the Windsor Town Council, and I was disappointed by the recommendations being voted down by the last administration in 2021, especially as almost 80% of resident responses to the last governance review were positive, and many of the councillors who voted against this had their own parish councils. During the recent election campaign, I knocked on many doors in my ward, the unparished Clewett and Dedworth East ward. When we spoke about a town council, it was evident that many people were unaware of the benefits and the valuable work that parish and town councils do. So I'm looking forward to the governance review process being restarted as an opportunity to engage, educate, and inform residents about the benefits of having an extra layer of democracy and aligning Windsor with the other 15 areas in the borough who already have a parish or town council. If this motion is agreed, a new governance review will ensure that all Windsor residents can have their say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Wisdom da Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like Alison. I was involved with Richard Endicott, Andre Walker, and Councillor da Costa in instigating that petition many years ago. But here's another date for you. It's exactly 50 years since Windsor residents voted for not the abolishment, but certainly for the new council at the Royal Borough of Windsor of Maidenhead. So for 50 years, we've been devoid of a council, devoid of the ability to make decisions about our own town. We're a small town, but we're one of the best in the country. I'm not denigrating wonderful places like Datchet, Horton, Wraysbury, Holyport, Bray. We just love the Windsor. People live in Windsor. So it's 50 years, and for those 50 years, and especially in the last 16 years, unfortunately, we've seen money go from our town to pay for developments in Maidenhead. Decisions made on who that and what that money is spent on, made by Maidenhead councillors, not by Windsorians. Developments in Windsor, like the Vision for Windsor, not led by Windsorians, but led by Maidenhead councillors. It's got to stop. I think Councillor Carpenter talked about the extra layer of democracy, and I agree with you. It's great to have that, and Councillor Coe said that as well. But here's the more important thing. The Windsor Town Council would offer a focal point for activities, just as it does in Old Windsor, just as it does in Bray. So the social aspect of the Windsor Town Council has to be looked at with great pride and opportunity. A chance to bring people together, a chance to have a great time together, a chance to deliver awards for other people who are doing great stuff. So we must not overlook that fact that this is not just about democracy, this is about bringing people together, especially, unfortunately, as we head into austere times, people will have to support one another through mechanisms like the Town Council. Now, I'm really pleased and appreciative of Councillor Karen Davies for amending her motions so that we can make sure that people who live in the Willows, in the Limes, in Broom Farm, and many soldiers who regard themselves as Windsorians will get the opportunity at least to be represented in the debate, in the discussion about whether or not we include these edge of settlement areas, which are full of Windsorians, within the Windsor Town Council. So I appreciate that very, very greatly. And I hope I can be on that panel to make sure that the voice of our residents, Carol da Costa and myself in Clewett and Dedworth West, is represented fully. Now, I think I'll stop there. Thank you, Chair. But so I absolutely applaud this motion and say, let's go forward with this motion. And also, let's not forget some transition powers, because it could be another 3-4 years before we get a Windsor Town Council. So let's start to think about devolving some transition powers, like grants to the Windsor Town Forum, or looking also, people have asked for the ability to comment on planning applications. So thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor da Costa. Councillor Helen Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Personally, as a Maidenhead councillor and a councillor for RBWM, which includes Windsor, I'm absolutely delighted to see this come back again. I was so hopeful when it came before with how far we got, and quite disappointed with the way it ended. As councillors, as well as everything else we do, our main purpose and why we were voted into council is to represent our residents and listen to our residents. And this is what we are doing right now with this coming back. The residents of Windsor asked for a town council. They voted for it. They spoke very loudly about it. And I'm absolutely delighted that we are listening to them, because that's what we should be doing.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Julian Teasey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to completely and thoroughly support the excellent motion that Councillor Karen Davies has put forward here, and for the reasons that she puts forward as well. And one of the reasons that I'm very supportive of this is that in our ward of Eton and Castle, roughly 1/3 of the residents are part of Eton and Eton Wick. And of course, Eton and Eton Wick are covered by a town council. And I have to say, wow, what a passionate body of people. They are making decisions about their own area. Now, this is irrespective of the fact that the powers that they have are relatively limited, but they are making decisions about their area, and that makes a difference. That makes a difference. Now, with every respect to the Windsor Town Forum, which absolutely serves a purpose in the absence of such a Windsor Town Council, ultimately, let's be honest, it's a talking shop. And there is a difference. There's a difference between a democratic body where people feel ownership of their town versus a talking shop.
Thank you, Councillor Chitty. Councillor Larkham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had to force a by-election for Datchet Parish Council. That was in July 1986. So I've been there some time, and I have to declare that I'm now on Wraysbury Parish Council and even Horton Parish Council. So I'm on 3 parish councils. When I say I know what's going on, I mean it. There's nothing to beat having the feet on the ground and knowing what's going on and seeing what's coming in the future. I'd be very happy to have a Windsor Town Council and really don't understand why we haven't had one for so long. I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Richard Coe. Thank you, Councillor.
I just have a really small point, bring it on as quickly as possible. And I wonder, Councillor Davies, if we can look at whether we can expedite the process and have an election with the Police and Crime Commissioner or with the general election.
Councillor Julian Sharp.
Chair, I think parish councils and town councils are a really good idea. I think it puts democracy really where it should be. It gives people a voice in their local communities. One thing that I really think we need to be careful about in talking about a new Windsor Town Council, though, is what powers it actually has and what jurisdiction it has over the issues locally. The parish councils actually have relatively limited rights over what they do. And I think if we start giving a town council wider rights than that, then you will start a call for the parishes to have wider rights as well. So it is going to be very much, I think, a balance of where we draw the line with all of this, but I'm fully supportive of the idea of taking this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Luxton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually fully support this motion. I think it's time for Windsor to take control of what they can do in their own town centre and spend the money in the right way, which I agree, Windsor has been neglected a lot. And I've always been talking about it, asking for help for everything to do that side of the area. Besides Windsor, it's also Ascot and Sunningdale and Sunning. We have been neglected, and I totally agree with that. But Windsor, being a tourist area and such an important place, it has to be in the most best condition, and it has been very badly neglected. So well done, whoever brought this motion forward to do this, and I support it fully. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luxton. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I too support this motion wholeheartedly. And again, like Councillor Julian Teasy said, being part of Eton and Castle, we can see the effectiveness of Eton Town Council operating and the strength of community that is shown within that town. And some examples of the work they've done, which you may seem relatively small, but it's very significant to that community, is installing memorial plaques on playgrounds, installing notice boards that just tell you what's going on. That we don't really have those in Windsor. And even down to providing dispensers for dog poo bags. Eton Wick have that, Windsor don't. So I think, and again, in the campaigning that we undertook, many residents were in favour. So I'm very glad that this is here, and very pleased to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Cross.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I too support the motion, and especially the point about undertaking a community governance review. So I'm here speaking both as a ward councillor, but also as Bray Parish councillor as well. And I note Councillor De Costa talks about the Willows, for example. Now the Willows sits within Bray Parish. And I know Bray Parish has worked long and hard with the residents of the Willows AL21 and supporting the national heritage assets that they have there as well. So again, I just want to ensure that we have all of the key stakeholders as part of this review. You know, I note that parish boundaries are one of the amongst the oldest features we have in English rural landscape. You know, so parish boundaries need to be taken into account here as well. And these areas, we know that Clwyd and Dedworth East and Clwyd and Dedworth West abut Bray Parish. So we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the residents. But I clearly support this motion. As I say, we need the key stakeholders in the room. We need to make informed decisions and do the right things by the residents. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Councillor Buckley.
Yes, again, being a parish councillor on a couple of parish councils in our ward, I cannot tell you how passionate I am about parish councils and what benefit they are in the democracy process, and how it trains councillors to become more proficient at their jobs. It helps train them in. I started off being co-opted in 2019. I've worked my way up through planning. I've been chairman of the parish council at Datchet for 2 years. And I was elected this year, and I cannot tell you how passionate I am about forming this layer of local democracy in the parishes and town councils to support the council with the people and what they need, and reporting back to the council. So I encourage everyone to try and parish the whole of the borough and to link up and put themselves forward for the parish councils and work with the parish councils, work on the borough and work your socks off for your community. So I can't tell you how passionate I am about Windsor Town Council. Everyone involved with it knows that anyway, and I fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor John Story.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too support this motion, but may I make one non-contentious suggestion, which may avoid difficulties later on? And that is that residents are specifically asked for their views about whether, if a Windsor Town Council were to be formed, its members should receive an allowance, or whether they should not receive an allowance, like the members of the Parish Council and Eton Town Council. I think you'll find asking that question early on will help a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Story. Councillor Kashmir Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. I would wholeheartedly like to support the motion by Councillor Davies. I think this is the closest way democracy can reach our constituents and voters, and I would also support the parishes for the whole of the borough. Thank you.
Councillor Mandy Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being a parish councillor for Cookham, I think it's very important to have parishes and town councils. They play really a vital role in the local community, so fully support the motion.
Thank you. Do any other members want to debate the issue any further? Councillor Davies, if you'd like to sum up, our seconder has already spoken, so to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I really welcome the support the members have expressed across the chamber for the community governance review, and also for the work of parish councils generally across the borough, which is fantastic. I particularly welcome the support of those Conservative members present who formally voted against the forming of the the Town Council for Windsor last time round. So thank you, I very much welcome your support this time round. Can we have an election timed to fit with the election of the PCC? Yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of will. Obviously, we would have had the council up and running and people elected in May of this year had the previous governance review report been accepted. So that's very frustrating to a lot of people. I don't know whether we can do it in time to get the election done at the same time as the PCC. We can use some of the work that was previously done. I would like to mention a lot of hard work was done by the officers in the last community governance review. The working group didn't do all the work. The officers did a heck of a lot of work. So I'd like to acknowledge that and say that we can use some of that again. Although obviously we will be revisiting the topics again, you know, we will be revisiting things again. So I don't know whether we can do that in time, but I will certainly bear that in mind. The powers obviously would be subject to negotiation in the usual way. New parish and town councils generally start off small with a, just, sort of a small number of services. And one thing I remember from the last review is that allotments are the sort of one statutory obligation that parishes and town councils have where they exist. So generally they start off small, find their feet and build up. Although I do appreciate the enthusiasm of members to want to do more, do a lot more than that. I thank the suggestion from Councillor Story on that point of allowances. A community governance review is a serious business, it's a legal business, so it will be done properly. I'm not going to rush it or do anything improperly. Really welcome Councillor Cross's comments about the sort of boundary issues, and we very much should the group decide that was something that we wanted to incorporate within the community governance review, then obviously we'd definitely be doing that in consultation with Bray Parish, and Kirsty Hunter's already sort of setting up a conversation there so that we're just sort of keeping in touch. I think I've covered all the points that everybody made, and yes, we'd just generally like to thank everybody for their support.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. If we could have the motion revealed again on the screen. We have before us this motion that the council agrees to undertake a community governance review examining the issue of whether a new town council for Windsor should be formed. Are we all in agreement? Okay. We're missing a councillor. Yeah, there we go. Happy? Okay. And that motion is therefore carried. The time now is dead on 9:30. So we have two more motions to process. Is everybody happy to continue? Thank you very much indeed. The next motion is by Councillor Taylor. If Councillor Taylor would like to introduce it, can we have Councillor Taylor's motion up there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Chair. Again, this is wording slightly amended to what was on the agenda, purely because I was bringing this motion initially in January and it got delayed and delayed and delayed. So we're in a slightly different situation now, both politically and demographically in the council. So I've amended the wording slightly in recognition of the fact that not everybody uses social media. So this is just to be a bit more encompassing, shall we say. The reason I've brought this motion, this should be quite quick. It's just asking us all as representatives of the borough to make a conscious effort that when we're speaking to residents, when we're out in meetings, when we're at surgeries, when we're on social media, to encourage our residents to use local services. being councillors, we know our wards very well, and we may be aware of residents who are running businesses from home or online, small businesses that might not be in the direct line of sight of, you know, mainstream high street. And I really do feel that it's our duty, especially in this climate, to try and get business for those people, and to try and, you know, ask people to shop more local and maybe try out smaller businesses that they may not have thought of before. I know personally, when I use social media, I'm awful for, if I go out for the evening and I'm going for dinner, I take a picture, I tag the location, but it doesn't enter my head when I go out in Maidenhead to grab a coffee to do the same thing. I don't know why, it's just how my brain works. So this motion is just really to ask everybody to make a conscious effort as representatives to try and point people towards local services, local festivals, events, things that we might, you know, be more aware of, and increase our residents' knowledge to shop more local. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Jones, do you wish to speak now or?
Very quick. Our local businesses and services are the lifeblood of our communities, and sometimes a lifeline for some of our older or more vulnerable residents. We as elected members should be doing all we can to help these businesses flourish. We can do our bit by raising awarenesses of businesses, events within our community. And I'm really pleased to be seconding this motion, and I hope all members will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Carol da Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a great supporter of shopping locally and keeping things local wherever you can. I do worry a little bit about using my influence as a councillor to promote certain businesses. And I have in the past promoted businesses on social media and been criticised for it. So I would just like to know exactly where I stand in that, because I wouldn't want to bring myself into disrepute by showing favour to a particular business rather than another. And I just think we need to be really careful about that. But I am a great believer in shopping locally and supporting all the businesses within my ward. Thank you.
Councillor Amy Cheesy.
Thank you. Just on the idea of supporting things online, we have a really good website, myroyalborough.com. And if you use the hashtag myroyalborough, it's a bit of a mouthful, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, perhaps the new one as well, then you can tag all these businesses, places that you go with your lovely photos, and it just helps people to find the information. They've also got a business directory, so you can encourage small businesses in your area to sign up. There is also small business support. There are some really good monthly meetings of small businesses, which I know the Mayor has been along to. And there's even a dog-friendly interactive map, so you can find out where you can take your dog in the borough. So it's a really, really good resource, and I'd encourage all members to have a look and encourage residents as well.
Thank you, Councillor Chissy. Councillor Baxley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As the new business champion of the borough, I would really support this motion and encourage all councillors to engage and support local business. I reiterate what Councillor Jones said in regards to the lifeblood of our community. I believe that all our businesses are going to need a lot of help and support through this period coming up. So I totally support this motion and encourage everyone to engage and help our local communities and our businesses, as I'm sure they will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Helen Price.
I just support what Councillor Teasey said, which was what I was going to say, but I would like to add that I seem to recall at the Mayor making that the Mayor said, by borough, I think was your phrase, because it was something that you want to encourage in your year, if I'm right.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Indeed, I have, and that's what I've been working towards with Councillor Buckley and others. Councillor Reeves.
Thank you very much.
Definitely welcome the change that Councillor Taylor has included in here, because by narrowing it to social media, I think was definitely limiting. In the opposite of that, actually, as a recent example, when the World Cafe event was actually being conducted at Cox Green Community Centre, I in fact actually raised it at one of our meetings that not everyone can be reached via social media, and in fact printed of my own expense posters of the World Cafe to take round to the Housing Association and other locations such as the Wessex shops, which they were happily willing to support, putting it up in their windows to get us that wider reach. So, you know, I think that's definitely welcome the change, and we should not just be thinking about social media, but actually to counter that, the other platforms that we have at our disposal to be able to promote these things. Absolutely for events and for things such as the example I gave, the World Cafe, would be something I'm already actively supporting the further promotion of.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Wisdom de Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I support Councillor Carroll de Costa's concerns about if we are seen to be supporting one business over another, it does give us potentially a code of conduct in terms of a 7 Nolan principles. Should we be preferring this coffee shop over that chain when that chain also employs hundreds of people? It's tricky. We absolutely do all buy local and we want to buy local. And I agree with Councillor Tizzy's point of view that actually Murrell Borough is a great venue. We can get all of our businesses, local businesses, onto that, because that isn't just seen by us locally, it's seen by people around the world when they're planning their trips. And maybe we can join this up with great discounts to an Advantage card and other forms of free parking, and we can extend this to make it more vibrant and for people to buy local. But there might be issues with councillors pushing this directly themselves.
Having taken a little bit of advice on that, it's really you have to use your own judgment. And I think there's a marketing angle to it. If you're at a coffee shop enjoying a cup of coffee, but not saying it's the best cup of coffee you've ever had in your entire life, that's the line, I think, isn't it? Where it becomes an endorsement rather than publicity. Would that be right?
That's excellent.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just want to comment on the amended wording for the motion, which includes attending local events, and I wholeheartedly support that, because for me this isn't just about supporting businesses and services, but also more sort of arts-related events. An example being, I went to an art exhibition on Sunday, which was run by Windsor artists and held in Warfield, and it wasn't very well advertised. So I think there's many more things around on the event side of things that we can do, you know, to help promote a very diverse range of events that the community will be interested in.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I looked at this, I felt I had no conflict of interest, but the discussions have raised a conflict within me in that my husband owns a business, a shop in the borough, which I will gladly promote. But if I vote on this, I don't want to be seen as having a conflict of interest. Therefore, I will abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Devon Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I worry that if this motion is approved, we will all walk away and do nothing different, because that would be very easy to do. I encourage Councillor Taylor to follow me, Mark and Julian's Facebook page to keep an eye on us if we do decide not to put in any additional effort. I'm sure other councillors have a Facebook page or online presence. I encourage you to follow that page as well and nudge us if we are not following through. Thank you.
Councillor Julian Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think in general, I'm in favour of this motion. I'm a passionate believer in shopping locally and using local services and restaurants and cafes and all of that sort of thing, and making sure that they are supported and promoted. The piece of this motion that I have a problem with is the way it's framed, in terms of we must all make a conscious effort to increase our promotion of local services and businesses? Who is measuring whether we have increased our promotion of these things? Who is guiding us to do that sort of thing? And if we don't do it, is there a penalty, or is somebody going to come down and give us a good whipping if we don't do these sort of things? I've no idea. So I'm passionately in favour of supporting local businesses and making sure that they're well supported all over the borough. But I just don't think that the wording of the motion is particularly good. So, I mean, I'm in favour of it, but I just think the wording could be improved. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Just to say, Mr. Mayor, I do own a business, so I think I should abstain as well from this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Martin.
Along with Councillor Hunt and Councillor Brown, I too own a business and a shop in Maidenhead. I also run a networking group. So the nature of that, without my councillor hat on, is promoting businesses. So I will probably abstain on this one too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's disappointing to hear a negative voice in the room and conflating the really positive motion that we have here on the table. I think if we read the motion, it's really clear that a conscious effort, we all know what a conscious effort is. I really don't think there's a point in trying to conflate or over-egg what people are doing or how things are going to work. Does each individual councillor say that they want to make a conscious effort to increase their social media presence and promote the great businesses that we've got in Windsor, Bailey and Ascot? Yes, of course we do. I can't see any reason why not support this, and I don't think there's a need to overcomplicate that. Thank you.
Councillor Gertzing.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of the motion. I wasn't going to say much, but yes, I think it's really important because some of the small local businesses in our community, they have small budgets, and it's good as local councillors to get the word around, what's open and what's new, and sort of, obviously we interact with a lot of people. I don't think there's any conflict unless you're getting a kickback from free coffees or whatever. There is, I will actually take the opportunity to let you know there is a new pub opened up in Queen Street, actually called the Borough. I won't be getting a free beer, but I'll let you know about that. Thank you.
I'll stop you there. There you go. Councillor Carol de Costa. Sorry, I can't hear you at all. Where's that? I can't actually hear anything. Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Could I just ask for a point of order and clarification on whether or not, if you're a small business owner in the area, whether we have to abstain or not? Because I think there's quite a few members in the chamber who are small business owners, and we just need to have that clarified as to whether or not we're allowed to vote.
The advice is yes, we can, should you wish, but equally you can abstain should you wish to do so. Okay, Councillor Luxton.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say I do a lot of charity work locally and nationally. I'm not too sure whether it'll affect my voting today or whether I would like some advice on that, because I do it quite, all around the country. Yeah.
Sorry, can you just elaborate on what you mean by that?
I'm pretty involved with lots of big charities.
Yeah.
So I do raise funds for all the national charities and local charities. On a very large scale, and also international. So I don't know whether, I want your advice. Do I abstain or do I vote?
I don't think there's a conflict there.
Does it matter?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, if there's nobody else with anything to contribute, we've had a few people say they're going to abstain. So rather than go to a named vote, can we identify the people who are going to abstain and then get agreement from anybody else? Does everybody agree with that as an issue? So those who wish to abstain, if you can indicate quite clearly, so it can be picked up. Councillor Hunt and Councillor Wisdom de Costa. Does everybody else, oh sorry, and Councillor Brown. Does everybody else agree unanimously? Motion is therefore carried. The final motion this evening is by Councillor Price. It's a fairly long and detailed one, and everybody should have had time to read this beforehand. Councillor Price, would you like to introduce your motion?
Thank you. Our corporate plan has a set of values, and one of which is respect and openness, working openly and transparently. This motion is to help us work to achieve that value in relation to Part 2 council papers. There may be members of the public unfamiliar with this term. There are two parts to every meeting. Part 1 are items fully available for all to see, and this is the vast majority of what is discussed at meetings. Part 2 are items which are commercially sensitive, information, for example, which must not be revealed to the public. I welcomed at the last council meeting and recent cabinet meetings a move towards being far more transparent in relation to Part 2 matters. So I knew I was pushing at an open door. This motion is to formalise this for all meetings. This motion relating to Part 2 matters has been created in consultation with the Head of Legal Services, Head of Democratic Services and the Chief Executive. The wording has to be precise as there are legalities involved. To simplify, in relation to Part 2 matters, there is moving forward and looking back. So moving forward, that abbreviated minutes will be published, that the reason why the item is deemed confidential is published, that when the reason no longer applies, the information will be published. Looking back, a review takes place of past Part 2 information with the aim of releasing if appropriate. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Werner. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak at the end? Thank you. Do we have the debate now open? Do we have anybody who wishes to speak? Councillor Wisdom de Costa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the principles contained within Councillor Price's motion. It would be great to have more clarity without absolutely disclosing anything that is confidential or sensitive. I suppose my concern is, and I want looking for advice from the monitoring officer, is this motion acceptable from your perspective in legal terms, or are there any issues with it? Or what are the issues with it?
This motion was placed before the monitoring officer and head of legal before tonight's meeting, and extensive legal advice has already been given on it. So yes, it is consistent with what our constitution demands and what local government law currently demands as well.
Councillor Wisdom de Costa, anything else to add? No, okay. Councillor Richard Coe.
Yes, I really welcome your motion, Helen. Obviously, like a lot of us in this room have been trying to get hold of documents for a very long time, and we don't all think that they all belonged in Part 2 when they were. And I also really welcome the real leadership on this that Councillor Werner has shown in terms of making sure that we have the minimum amount in Part 2, and that every single word that can be in Part 1 is in Part 1. So I think we're making good progress, and I welcome your motion to sort of provide belt and braces to that.
Councillor Carol de Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think any motion that brings openness and transparency to an organisation has to be supported, and in my opinion, this is a no-brainer, so I fully support this motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Larkham.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Anything that improves
the honesty and the openness and the transparency of this new council can only be a good thing, and I will be voting in favour of it. Thank you.
Councillor Julian Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support this. I think it's really important that we are as open as we possibly can be. When I was in charge of the pension fund, we changed our way of working so that we could put as much information out into the public domain as possible. We limited the amount of Part 2 that was there and transformed the way that the pension fund operated. Previously, there was a lot of information hidden behind Part 2, and that has all changed. So I fully support this. I think it's a great idea, and we should all be able to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Burbidge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I just want to say, yeah, I too fully support this motion. I think it's an excellent step forward to formalise this. And, you know, we've obviously seen over the last couple of months a process emerging, which has been really positively received. And, you know, to put this now into, you know, a firm footing is a great thing. I also want to thank Councillor Price specifically for the manner in which he's gone about bringing this motion and, you know, fully engaging with officers and to get, you know, the wording in the right place so that, you know, and I know there has to be a certain level of compromise, and I think it's to be commended that we now have a motion that, you know, will work within the confines of the, you know, the statutory environment that we find ourselves in. I wanted to just make one point, and it's shouldn't be taken at all as a criticism. In fact, it's more to enable members. One thing that might concern you potentially when we're trying to bring in debate into Part 1, where there is, for example, a Part 2 appendix, would be, you know, if there is a member who really genuinely wants to talk about some of that confidential information, I think it's very important that we're all mindful of that, and no one feels that they are unable to ask to go into Part 2 in those circumstances. I don't want people to feel that debate is in any way stifled by the fact that we're, you know, all so keen to keep things in Part 1. You know, absolutely, when we can, we should, but nobody, yeah, I don't think anyone should feel that they're you know, sort of barred from talking about certain things if they desperately want to and, you know, explicitly, you know, talk about some, you know, financial information which they otherwise wouldn't be able to talk about, for example. I just thought, yeah, I wanted to sort of make that observation and bring it on to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reeves.
Thank you very much. I also would like to commend Councillor Price on the thoroughness of your thought process in being proactive, engaging with the monitoring officer and other legal input around the Constitution. Myself, having undertaken legal qualification in a later life to support my own career, I do understand some of the requirements that are needed around confidentiality. And I do appreciate the fact that you've even included in there the GDPR reference as well, because I think that's very crucial to respect people's rights around their own data privacy as well. And that should be kept, obviously, as a clear indication that we are respecting that, whilst also trying to be as transparent as possible in all of our dealings in this council. I just wanted to extend my thanks to you for actually carrying out that work, and also having the monitoring officer and the chief executive consulted throughout that process going forward, as well as the opportunity to see some of that information or release that information previously. Being a new councillor, it will only help us in our discussion and our thoughts on how we are to progress this council for the good of the residents. So thank you very much, and thank you to Councillor Werner for actually getting behind this as well and actually putting it into effect. And I think we've seen that clearly from the way this council has been acting in this short space of time so far. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reid. Councillor Lynn-Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to thank Councillor Price, officers and all members who have enabled this motion to come forward. It's been a long time coming and I look forward to increased transparency going forward. Thank you.
Do any other members wish to speak, or can we now close the debate? Can you push it? There we go. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is in tune with everything I've heard from members of the administration since long before the election and since. So I think the intention has been there to do all the things that you're suggesting, Helen, but it's a great idea to formalise this, and I'm very grateful for you for proposing it, and I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
If the debate is now concluded, our seconder, Councillor Simon Werner.
Thank you very much. It will not surprise anyone here from all the comments that have been made that our new administration is very, very enthusiastic to increase transparency. Over the last 16 years, we have increasingly seen more and more decisions being made in secret and the reasons kept confidential. Well, that's got to change now. I've already asked that the policy is changed regarding Part 2 items, that the bulk of the reports appear in Part 1, and only the details that have to stay confidential appear in the Part 2 appendix. This has been successfully implemented over the first few months of our administration, but Adam does make a very good point that it shouldn't stop councillors from talking about the Part 2 appendixes if necessary. We have spoken already in this meeting about strengthening scrutiny and making it easier to reduce the number of names you need for a petition, both of which I think are actually important stakes in our transparency campaign. This motion is the next part of that plan. But I don't think it ends here, and we're looking forward to further changes being brought forward to make transparency even more embedded in the organisation. But why is transparency important? It's about giving confidence to residents. It's about holding ourselves and each other to account. It's about ensuring that we understand why decisions have been made and preventing a vacuum of knowledge. And that just leads to unrest and confusion and conspiracy theories. We are elected officials here on behalf of residents. We therefore must make available to them as much as appropriate and possible the evidence that supports our decisions, the way decisions were made, and what we expect the outcomes of those decisions to be. Transparency is so important to this administration, and we can only do more and more to make decisions open to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Councillor Helen Price, would you like to sum up your motion?
I'm delighted to have the full support of members. But I want to place on record that I don't have an expertise in this area, and this motion could not have been brought if it hadn't been for the officers who worked diligently hard and to and fro to come up with the final version. And I couldn't have created that. So I would like to thank them very much for that. We'll feel our way, undoubtedly. And so I would just say that because the officers have been so supportive of this, if a member in a meeting when it is in Part 1 feels that they wish to ask something, then they only have to turn to the office to say, I wish to ask something, but I'm not sure if I can. And they will give guidance, just as they've given guidance here. So their support is there. So, and thank you, Councillor Werner, for your support.
Thank you, Councillor Price. So, nobody else wishes to speak, and are we all unanimous in supporting this motion? Anybody against at all? Councillors, thank you very much for what's been an interesting, exciting and to the point evening. Thank you for the quality of the debate, which has been outstanding. I declare the